Welcome to the Cybersecurity Summit podcast.
My role, and usually like what it is that I do and what I love to do is researching the most vulnerable systems out there, right? Like in whether you're in retail, right, or manufacturing or banking or hospitality, any of those industries have infrastructure, and all of that infrastructure, they have ways that you communicate with them, right? So that can be a number of things. It could be a software service provider. It could be some on-premise, servers, clients, workstations. There's all of these, distributed systems, right? That we as information security engineers, we're responsible for understanding how they communicate with each other, and quite frankly, how they should not be communicating with each other, right? Securing that,
Right.
right?
Yes.
It is important for someone like me to understand, the concept of interfaces. And I think what happens, like kind of what we were chatting about before, is those interfaces are, they're both, digital, right? They're hardware, but they're also us, like they're people,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot gets lost in context and translation, right? So my true role at this level is to ensure I understand what the business needs, like at speed, right? I can't wait with emerging trends, right? And then to also understand the tech teams that are responsible for building it, right? Because we don't want to say, we're known, cyber is known for being the data police, and that is like, people are like, they don't dig that, they have to put all of these policies in place, right?
You're
So
like technology accountants
yeah, exactly.
or technology HR.
That is exactly the case, right? We're known as the data police, and right, and let's be honest, like police don't have the best reputation, right? It's like
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
they always come in after it's blown up, right? Like what do you want now, right? So in any case, that's my role. I 50%, quite frankly, research and analyzing data, looking at data, and then 50% writing about it, and in a brief and concise way, such that engineers who typically have some form of ADHD, such that they can, consume it, that they'll actually read it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope I answered that question. Yeah, like that's what I do.
And so what's the name of your role, Olivia?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the title, but what would you, where do you layer in the cybersecurity realm?
Yeah, so I am an information, I'm a glorified hacker, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I
I,
am
might,
a
I hope I might be scared now.
yeah, honestly, now the title itself is, it's very long, and it
Okay.
basically says, right? It basically says, senior leader of information security engineers,
Okay.
right?
I like
Um,
glorified hacker. I totally got that.
That is the truth, right? So, information or security engineers, right? So I'm a senior leader in security of security engineers, and what we do all day is we look at things like web application firewalls, right? Load balancers, proxies, DNS, and we determine which of those elements, right, as objects these days. They could either be physical or they could be logical. We determine if they're trusted or untrusted, right? And then we discuss whether or not on our particular, in our particular realm, if that's traffic that we want to allow, right? That's the
Oh,
right.
that's really insightful. So it's
Yeah,
a
like
question
that.
of if you're even gonna let them in the door.
Right? Like people call
That's
certain
really
things
interesting.
exactly, very much like, when you're gonna have a party, right? Not anybody can
Yes.
just come to your party.
Yeah, or I'm just
Yes.
thinking of way olden days where if you have a castle and you have the a moat and a
Oh,
right,
bravo.
And so it's
Bravo.
kind of the tiers of how people can, how far they can come in,
I
perhaps.
love that
Because,
analogy.
right?
Bravo.
Because you may want e-com, you may want people to pay for and buy something, but you
Mhm.
don't want someone who's going to come in and try to take the commerce information and then
Correct.
hack it.
Correct.
Is that,
100%.
that's one
That is one scenario
that's
of
one
many
scenario.
ways, right? Like you
Yeah.
definitely you want a bridge, right?
Yeah.
You want the money, right? But you don't want really you don't need to
On
know
all
the
the extra gift, the gift
correct.
with purchase.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
With that.
So have you been in, how long have you been in cybersecurity specifically?
Oh, can you see me
Full
clear?
time? I can.
You
Yeah.
can. How
Yeah.
long have I been? Good question. 20.
You were cyber before
Yeah.
cyber was cool.
Yeah, I really was. Like, I actually always got accused and now realizing that I have been very nerdy all of my life because I love learning. Like more than cyber, like I love reading, I love learning, I love building stuff and tearing stuff up. Like,
Yeah.
or what's the word for it? That it's not tearing it.
Dissecting it.
Yeah, decommissioning. That's what they call it these,
Decommissioning.
right?
Okay. That's farther than dissecting. Okay.
So, how long have I been in cyber? 2010. I,
Okay.
I it was probably before that, right? Off the top of my head, I'm thinking,
Well,
back
that's
in
about, that's baby internet, right? That's when you could,
yeah,
that was when you still could Google something and there wouldn't be a result.
yeah, absolutely. You know what? If I'm honest, like I think Google had just started.
That's what
Like,
I mean. When you could actually, someone goes, hey, you
yeah,
should go on this thing called Google. I'm like, what? What's it
yeah,
called? And then I
yeah. It
went down
was
there,
fantastic.
they're
I,
like, it's a search engine. And I was like, really? And I went down, they said, you can find out information. I started keying stuff in and it said no results, no results. I'm like, oh, isn't that great? Now you couldn't imagine keying something in and not learning,
oh
getting
my
almost
goodness.
a college degree for pity's sake. And you talk about the internet has taught me that I am actually that geek like you, or the
Yes,
nerd like you, that is dying for all the information that I didn't care about when I was young. But
that's right.
now
That's
I
right.
learned world history and American history and all the different things that I was, while I was out being social and not
Yes.
hearing about my studies. I mean, I was
100%, right? Like, no, 100%. It has changed, right? Like it has changed Google and today's, in the way we can connect online, it has changed education, right? Formal collegiate education. Instead of, children are no longer, I guess they're not children after 18, but they're no longer thinking
yeah.
I'm going to go to a 4-year college. They're like, I can learn this on YouTube. I can learn how to code, right? We have
I
so
know
many
it.
coders today. People in cyber, they're learning how to code on YouTube and
I know.
and getting jobs, right? That pay really great wages, right? So
Because
it's
all they have to do is prove their skill,
yes,
right?
right,
And
right.
that's what existed before, is you proved a skill, soft and hard skills, right?
Yes.
Before to get a job, but now you prove the skill and the degree means something totally different unless you're at certain, unless you have certain heights you want to reach or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is a set of the population that we really need to code and to construct and to you know what I mean, do all kinds of more
Sure, sure.
technical, hands-on, but thoughtful work, right?
Sure. Yes. And the other deal though is I see with that how certain skills have changed, right? So
Mhm.
for instance, I have very gifted and talented engineers,
Yeah,
right? They can put together any cloud environment, any application, put together components, visualization tools.
yeah,
However, right, their ability to connect and to speak
the
to
people.
others, right? How to use your influence or your power when gifted too early, right? How to present someone well without the uhs and the ums, right? Those skills, I don't know, you can't I think that's a combination of things, right? And so corporations find themselves in interesting spaces, very much like you said, it's a skill, and then that they can prove themselves and be worth something, right? They can compete in the market, but then there are all of these soft skills, right? That you're lacking, and that can cost you money, right?
Yeah, and I actually have a colleague that's at a big organization, and we were talking, and as I keep saying, we're not 29 anymore, and we
Yeah.
remember the days of coming up through big corporate and
Mhm.
seeing if you are a person that has people skills, the
Right.
importance of walking around the water cooler and the different kinds of
Right.
relationships you could create, and you could accelerate your career because you did. If you
Yeah.
actually care about people, you can create real
Absolutely.
relationships. There was
Absolutely.
all kinds of informal, call it horse trading, that would happen,
Absolutely. Right.
right? Or
Excellent point.
or even, I know when I started, there was one admin in the office that had a computer. No one else had computers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
Uh-huh.
would, so you would hand in your handwritten thing to get typed up, right? And put into the computer.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
where you ended up in the stack that day kind of had a candy bar with it, or a,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there was there
Yes.
there was a shuffle going on.
Yeah.
So, but what we were saying on the phone was, oh my goodness, we love to be able to be in person to have that shuffle because we have those skills. But
Yeah.
but you're right. Because the world has changed so much, those skills, young people,
Correct.
because they've been so online, haven't had the chance to develop or see the impact of those skills and
Correct.
relationships, right? So they've almost gotten to be superheroes in the tech and what they can do online, and they
Mhm.
don't even know that this other thing on the side, what that might
Right.
do.
Right. And I find it to be somewhat of a divine circle, right? Like,
Tell me about that.
yeah, like when we were coming up in tech, right? I just I specifically remember um executive executive assistants, excuse me.
Yes. Yep.
They were called secretaries, right? And they were the closest thing to the head of a company, the CEO, the COO, right? They got the first typewriter, the first computer, the first printer. They had all the goods,
Yeah,
right?
they did. Yeah. Hmm.
Right? They were the seat next to power. But somehow, for some reason, they were always not looked at like the power, right?
Yeah, like they weren't recognized by many, by
Correct.
most,
Correct. But it's
as the
correct.
significant intelligence they would have to be the right hand, right?
Exactly. So, but the most CEOs, the most successful CEOs or COOs, right?
Yeah.
That had, a successful, and I love the change of the name because that is a true capture of a skill, executive assistant, right? That
Yes.
means that you have to know what this person, how they're thinking, how they're moving, who they're going to work. You have to capture their body language. Like, do you remember in
All
the
of it.
right? The Devil Wears Prada, she had two assistants, right?
That's right. And they actually had unique parts of her life, right?
Correct. Correct.
Right.
So
Yeah,
what
it's
I
true. It's true.
find, right? What I find in the change is it's a divine circle. What the world is learning, what we are learning and experiencing, right? What we should, what we should be thinking about as emerging threats, right? Is the inability to capture, right? The dream, the realization, the visualization, the inability to capture that because your developer doesn't have it, right? Your
Because
developer,
they just don't have any lens to it.
they don't, right? So one of the reasons diversity, and we have this conversation, and I've had this with every company I've worked with. One of the things in diversity, equity, and inclusion is it does mean three different things, right? I
Folks.
can be, right? I can be in the room with you. But that doesn't mean that I feel empowered and confident enough to speak with you, just because I'm in the room with you, that does not mean that I'm being paid equally, right? Just
Mhm.
because I'm in the room with you, that does not mean that I have the same impact, right? So even though, right, we can talk about those three things, each of them, each of them must have teeth, right? So, right? So
Yeah, yes.
for the youth, and that's ageless, right? Whether you are
Ageless.
a baby boomer, a Generation Xer, I think I don't know if I'm not a millennial, not at all. I don't know what my generation is, but we'll get to that.
I'm the end of the boomers. I feel like
Okay,
the
okay,
last 2 years,
okay. I think I'm Generation X. What's your
are you
gen?
X?
I think what's the generation? If you're at the end of the baby boomers, then what's the generation?
I think Gen X was next, right? Or millennials. No, millennials were next, then Gen X, Gen Y, right? Are you a
I'm
millennial?
No, I can't be. I'll be 50 this year. I'm not a millennial.
We're gonna figure out what that is. You
Yeah,
keep
I know. We gotta look that up. We gotta look
I'll
that
look
up.
it up, but
Did
you
I
can talk.
did I answer your question about, the way skills have changed? So technology has gotten us, right? We do incredible things with data, right?
Yeah.
Um, but what how much of that is lost in translation because of the lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? If you were truly including people, the greater the product, right?
Yes.
So when you intentionally shut people out, you're hurting yourself, right? You shoot yourself in the foot.
You're
It's
limiting your marketplace, you're limiting what you understand about putting into the
right.
product and service. You're
It's
just making it a much narrower.
That's right.
You have a pink ball, but you could have a pink ball that bounces, that lights up, that you could have all these different things that serve a whole set of
That's
people,
right.
but you got
That's
this
right.
one simple thing.
That's right. And
And
so,
and you are a Gen X, by the way.
okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so
Now you
so I'll just wrap with this, right?
know.
Though, technology takes us in great places. I love it. I never get bored with it, right? I think it's one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I do find that on calls like this on Zoom, like you and I immediately connected. I see fire, right? Even without the red behind you, that's just a fraction of what you are. I see fire, right? So those our ability, what that is, whether that is coming up at the same in the same era, seeing the same things,
Mhm.
having belief in people, being positive, your ability to manage conflict,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
um, even when you might be disappointed about something, your ability to channel
mhm,
your anger,
yeah.
right? Into your skill and to be focused. You can't, I don't know if you can teach someone how to finish
Yeah.
what you start, right? Right?
Well, don't you think that goes back to parenting? I hate to say it goes, it's that nature versus nurture. I do think the household, you coming from a happy, healthy household and
Mhm.
marrying a not happy household, I
Yeah.
do think household has, and
Sure.
I don't want to say parents, because I think the whole household is
Yeah. So I
right.
love that. I love the question, and I love that you said, I'm not gonna just say it's parents, right?
It isn't just parents, it's
Right.
grandparents, it's aunts and
Yeah,
uncles, it's your
right.
household, it's your
It's the community,
it's
right?
the
It's
community.
right. It is the immediate community.
Yeah.
So I love it. Yeah, right. Yes, yes, and no. Here is the gap, I
Okay.
think, right? Like, is it the parenting and the community? Yeah. But also we know that you can have the greatest of circumstances, right? We have examples of humans, a lot of them. They come from the best of families.
Mhm.
the greatest of funds, endless resources,
Yeah.
fame, fame, and fortune,
All of it. Yeah.
right? But yet, right? But yet,
There's a
so
chemistry.
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
chemistry. Yes.
correct. So, to be determined, that's all I can say,
Yeah.
right? To be determined to the human factor, right?
Yeah. There is that yin and yang of how much
Yeah.
is how much. And but yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting to see how you find now at this moment in your life that when you meet people on your team, you can almost based on your superpower of connecting with folks, you can almost right away go, here's who you are, here's who you are, here's who you are, from a how they will contribute to the team, not in a judgment way, but what they I
Yeah.
find I can do
Yeah.
that to an extent. I can sit down with 5 people and I can
Yeah.
after they've all spoken, I can go, high performer, going to be really great, steady Eddie. You know what I mean? I can kind of see immediately by how they present early on in the project,
So,
how they'll interact in the team and what their role will be like.
so if I am honest, right? I am not good at that. No,
Okay,
because
that's
I
not your.
am a sucker. I am a bleeding heart. I am a sucker. So no, I cannot. I cannot. I am the leader, right? Now, some people do say I can, some people and some leaders will say, um, I can tell in 5 minutes, right? Whether or not I'm dealing with a leader, a contributor, a high performer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't have that talent, right? Now, so I have to actually work with you, right? I have to be given at least, I'm very gracious. I have to be given at least 3 weeks, right? Like I give people, right? Because I give people 3 chances. I'm into that. Actually, that's not,
I am too. I am
yeah.
too.
I'll give them 2 chances, right? Like, because there can always be an emergency,
Yep.
right? And that has happened to me where I look like, wow, right? Like last week, if this meeting was last week,
Yeah. That wasn't the moment you could post it. Yeah.
I was having email sync issues. I was going to a 9 o'clock at 10 o'clock. It was crazy. So
Yeah.
I give people grace. I do.
I
Um,
do.
but to answer your question about productivity, when it comes to the like, making
That's
decisions
like
about those
you're
skills,
responsible for delivering what the team does. Yes.
yeah, then I can tell within an hour. Yes. Like
Yeah.
let's say in a perfect world,
Yeah.
we're on the call. I'm new to the team, right? And I know that our job is to find X vulnerability on a certain device, and it's been at the company for 5 years. Yeah. In 5 minutes, I'll be able to tell you if I'm running the show, right? If
Oh
I'm
yeah.
a facilitator, I will be able to tell you in 5 minutes who my engineer is, who I want at the keyboard, who I want scheduling meetings, who I need on the phone, right? Who is my log reader? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I can. Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
So you can direct the orchestra like that. Like you're an
Okay.
orchestra
Okay.
director. You know what all the instruments are that to
Let
make
me let, let me let me let can I
you can
yes,
go wherever
yes
you
I can.
want.
Yeah, yes I can. So let's say I was gonna say, did I pick the orchestra or did I inherit the orchestra?
Oh, you probably inherited the orchestra. If you're
I
out of big
did.
business, you inherited them all. And maybe you got to pick the flute player.
You know what? I absolutely love your analogies. I love the castle and the moat analogy, when it came to protecting the fortress. And I love this analogy. I would have never thought of it myself. So, can I direct the orchestra, even if inherited? Okay, so if I selected the orchestra,
Oh yeah.
absolutely. Like a well-oiled machine, nothing like it on the road.
The
Absolutely.
the Philharmonic if you pick it.
Yeah, okay. But if I inherited it, we need a little time to tune, right? Like every orchestra needs like even like the greatest, like even like like the the Moody's
Local community Philharmonic.
community, right? They have to kind of understand that, yeah, indeed, I will be directing the cast today. So that takes a little bit of burning in, we call it.
I love that. Well, so you're appreciating that I was named Wendy, and Wendy is a Disney character, and she's a storyteller, for Peter Pan, right?
I do.
So that's why, right?
That's nice.
Not a Disney princess, because she's a worker bee Disney girl.
I love that. I love that.
That's gonna get cut out, by the way.
Okay. Right.
That's like insider baseball.
Right. I love it. I
thought you'd get a kick out of it.
Yeah, I did. I do. Okay.
What would be one thing you want young people in cyber to be thinking about? Like if I'm going to transition into cyber, or I'm new to it, and I want to make it my career.
Yeah.
Couple things I should how do I frame my mind to cue my career in cyber?
I would care about how systems operate. So there is this protocol it's OSI. It's called the Open System Interconnect, right? And it explains the 7 layers of any computing system, right? The 7 layers of any computer that has to communicate with another computer.
Right.
I would say, if I were thinking about cyber, I would start there and care about that, right? Because that leads you to TCP/IP, the actual internet working protocol, the transmission control. I didn't want to sound like I didn't want to
actually, you're schooling me. I like it.
Yeah, I didn't want to say all of those words, so I try to cut it. I'm trying to get better at that. But the bottom line is the OSI layer, there's 7 layers that will lead you to the TCP/IP stack, the internet working, the IP routing protocol responsible for everything on the internet, everything, routers, virtual routers, switches, firewalls, like everything, right? It'll teach you that.
And so if you dig into those 2 as a starting place, and that sparks your imagination, then this is an area, at least to point and start exploring.
Correct. If you find that interests you, keep your interest, and you want to learn more, right? Like, let's just say you like computer hardware today, you like putting things together. If learning about what the OSI layer, that stack, does, and what the internet protocol does, the internet working protocol does, if you do that, I would say you would probably, everything else behind that, every vendor, right? Your Cisco's, your Broadcoms, your Junipers, right? Your Barracudas. I would say, I would argue easily that once you understand that communication stack, that networking stack, you could probably master just about any vendor out there. It's agnostic learning, right? That's what I would teach. I would try to drive passion around those things, because everything else is just built on that, right?
Thanks for joining us today at the Cybersecurity Summit podcast. See you next week. We invite you to join our Cyber Pro community on LinkedIn at Cybersecurity Summit.